Okay, so we are live. Hello, dear colleagues, all participants of our event. If you want to know how to organize and synchronize the teamwork in practice, also if you want to take a valuable practical approach, then you are actually on the right place. You are at the second Project Insider event, Innovation Elegance Series number 2. Um, with a great international expert, our guest, Robert Snyder. Also, we have the Dmitro Lozovitsky. So, the stage are yours. Happy event to everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Volodymyr. Hello, Robert. Hello, dear colleagues. One more time, hello, dear BAs, IT fans, managers, and everyone who just involved in that technology area at all. So, dear colleagues, as was mentioned before, this is our special event series. Uh, Expectation management, traffic jam factory, or symphony. This is our topic for today with outstanding, with great international expert, IT expert, Robert Snyder. So, founder and president of Innovation Elegance. Today, guys, why we choose this topic for you together with Robert, not only because of the general or overall experience, but the importance of this topic is huge because expectation management is a cornerstone, real cornerstone of the team efficiency every time and everywhere. So that is why let's dive deep together into the topic and think together how this or that could be managed. I mean, gaps, I mean, some kind of challenges, I mean, some kind of approaches that you can use after this event in your teamwork. And please, just a kind reminder, don't forget to ask the questions to our expert. And for sure, please don't forget to visit the LinkedIn page, Innovation Elegance, and Robert as well. So subscribe, please subscribe or on Robert page, please subscribe on our pages and be on the edge together with us. And I think that Robert, can we start? I guess. Yep.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for having me again today, Dimitro.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your efforts and for all things that you are doing for IT guys in the worldwide scale. So the short information about the Robert, just a couple of words. I can't ignore that because I know that I introduced Robert last time, but one more time. Background: over 30 years in IT, innovation, leadership, consulting, project management, application architecture, enterprise change management, performing art. Wow, this is a huge list of different experience and for sure deep knowledge and specialization, defining education and executing the next generation of innovation methodology. Guys, we are living in the era of innovations, AI, and not only AI. So please be in shape. Yep, in shape form, and don't forget to go forward to develop yourself and to collect different kind of knowledge from the best experts in the world. So, Rob, this is a short introduction of Robert. Robert, can you maybe add something?
Gosh, I'll reiterate that I'm passionate about helping innovation professionals evolve into rhythm and habits that really acknowledge what makes teamwork difficult, and that
Yeah.
is people. It's not software. So, right, when a team gets itself into trouble, it's not like a developer goes to the sponsor and says, "Hey, I'm sorry, that code I've been working on, so difficult, so sorry." Right? That when our teams get into trouble, it is about people, how we
Yes.
interact, govern each other, collaborate or fail to collaborate. And so this topic of expectations, I think we chose it because it's, as you said, it's so universal, it's so fundamental and foundational. It applies to all of us. And so, setting expectations, um, when you fail to set expectations, that's fog, that's lack of clarity, that's being set up for failure. And so we chose this topic of expectation management
Yeah,
because it sets our teams up for success. And that, whether, regardless of where we are in our org chart, we want to set ourselves up for success. We want to set our teams up for success. So,
yes,
so there's value in really minimizing ambiguity about
exactly.
what it means to set and then meet expectations, right? Set expectations, meet expectations, rinse, repeat, rhythm, factory, flywheel. And I think that's the why we landed on this topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. Can't add more, anything more. And guys, please don't forget also take a look on Robert's books, Innovation Elegance and Innovation Portfolio, especially the second book. When I read these books, I just got a lot of insights about the teamwork. So please don't forget to do that. You can easily find these books in Amazon, on Amazon, etc., and other sources. So please Google and find. And a couple of words about me. I am Lozovitsky Dmitro, Chief Business Analyst, EPAM. And I am convinced in that fact that only on the edge of different knowledge area and practical things, you can born the new ideas, the new approaches, new methods, etc. And that helps us to make our work better and better. Because if we will have a lot of professionals inside the community, our work will be very, very cool and pleasure. So let's go forward, and we have 60 minutes active discussion, pure 60 minutes, best practices, two experts, and a lot of insights. I can say not only one pager, but a lot of the slides from Robert today. Beautiful thoughts. So please note, please think, and let's deep dive. So the first slide is about some kind of things related to the metaphors and other other objects related to the teamwork and healthy and unhealthy collaboration. So, Robert, what do you think? Well, everyone knows, yep, that healthy collaboration is one of the key factors of success in our work. But what is the structure, in your opinion, of these
Mm.
metaphors?
The reason why I chose to start this conversation about metaphors, the headline I think here is missing, and the headline for the slide is "Start with Why."
Sorry.
Um, that's okay. That's okay. It's because at the moment, the common leadership paradigms are values and principles. And you see, I've mentioned those on the right in this slide.
Yeah,
Values and principles have been around for a long time. They're fine, but they're not rigorous enough to help us solve our biggest problems here in 2025. And the reference to lip service, and you see the cute little truck there with the big
yeah,
lips, is that we have executives, we have employees, colleagues who are giving lip service and saying yes, yes, yes to the values and principles, yet they're not behaving according to those values and principles. And every now and then you'll have an executive, defend their values and principles and say, "Hey, these are not just words on the wall." And I would ask, why did you feel the need? Why did you feel the need to tell us that? It's because you have some people who are not overtly, because no one's going to overtly reject and opt out of values and principles, but they are covertly, right?
yeah.
Secretively opting out of the values and principles. So the different leadership paradigm and the different altitude of metaphors, one of its strengths is
Mhm.
that it is very easy to opt out. You can opt out of the symphony. And today we'll talk about three metaphors: traffic
Yeah,
jam, factory, and symphony. It's very easy to opt out, but it's very easy for me to detect that you have opted out. And it's very easy for me to make you own. You own the decision that you opted out. So the leadership paradigm of metaphors makes it really difficult to covertly opt out. It's very difficult to give lip service. You can overtly opt out, but it's very difficult to covertly opt out, which means we keep authenticity, we keep sincerity on the team. And where there's insincerity and inauthenticity and bad faith, we kick them out of the symphony. And this is teeth, this is discipline. It's unfortunate, but it's better to retain authenticity, sincerity on our bus and invite everyone in a very safe, pragmatic manner. If this symphony or this expectation factory isn't for you, go find a different metaphor. And so what you see here on this slide are two lists. One list contains what I see as great metaphors for great collaboration. And then the middle list are great metaphors for terrible collaboration.
Yeah.
Um, and then the latest I realized, at some point I'll add to the middle list the metaphor of hot potato. And so this
Mhm.
is also known as finger pointing. And the racing matrix, someone just last week reminded me that they feel their racing matrix is strictly for finger pointing if and when something goes wrong. And this is very negative.
Yeah.
It's accurate, it's fair, it's but so that's the point of this slide, is to propose the value of metaphors as a valuable leadership paradigm here in
Mhm.
2025, because values and principles are too squishy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And guys, please don't forget this is some kind of checklist for you in these two blocks. Metaphors is for healthy collaboration and vice versa, metaphors for unhealthy collaboration. So you need to take this information, take into account this information in your work, and just please keep this information on background in your thinking process when you're going to think about your teamwork and team collaboration. So we can go forward. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that the next slide is about three metaphors.
Well, this is the agenda
Yeah.
for this session, and really, it's just laying out, more visually, what are the topics we're going to cover today. So, in this session, we'll talk about what does it mean to imitate an expectation traffic jam. What does it mean to imitate an expectation factory or flywheel or a well-oiled machine, a well lubricated machine? And then what does it mean? What do we see if we are trying to imitate an expectation, a communication symphony? So
Yeah.
this is really the agenda for this session.
Yes, yes, sure, sure. So let's speak a little bit more in details about each of these block. But before we're going to do that, guys, please concentrate your attention on your project cases, yep, and thinking about the information that Robert going to share with you in the context of your practical things, and provide your questions to yourself, to us, and maybe realize your opinion, etc. We also will be appreciate that, and appreciate you much, because only in the discussion the best ideas will be born. And I think that the first one is about the traffic jam. Yep.
Yeah. Um, well, actually, this slide, I think the title is "Learning Objectives."
Yeah.
So at the end of this session, I hope you will be comfortable answering the question, why would you manage like a factory? And the short version here is, although your team isn't literally a factory, you should manage it like one because you care about all the same things. You care about your team's speed, quality, waste, variability,
Mhm.
vigilance. How much oversight does it need?
Yeah.
Ease. Is it easy? Elasticity. Can it handle small variations or disturbances in your factory? And so At the end of the session, I hope you will agree with me that it is really valuable to manage like a factory. The
Mhm.
second learning objective is, okay, a factory, what are the components of a factory? The first thing that comes to my mind are the gears.
Okay.
What are the teeth that really propel productivity and force progress to move forward? So at the end of this session, you will have an understanding of what I'm proposing as the gears for the
Mhm.
expectation factory, as opposed to the lubrication. So, and maybe in a separate session, we can talk about what is the lubrication for this expectation factory.
Absolutely. Great idea. Yep.
And then the third image here, the learning objective is that it's one thing to imagine a single thread, a single track of expectations, but of course there can be, should be, and inevitably there will be multiple threads, multiple tracks of work going on at the same time. And it's important, it's valuable to understand what is the sequence, what can be in parallel, what's what's the melody, what's the harmony. And
Yeah.
so we can talk about the metaphor of a symphony, because our progress, our teamwork is not so single threaded as a factory. It is multi threaded, just like a symphony.
Exactly. And we have also the graph. Yep.
So this the title of this slide is traffic jam.
Mhm.
This is the cost profile of a traffic jam. So if you think of a city that you know that it's not building roads, buses, or trains fast enough, it means
Mhm.
it's falling behind on its infrastructure. And you see on the right the reference to low infrastructure. So our communication traffic jam, it's understandable, and the way it appears in our daily life is that we have an infinite an infinite number of meetings and an infinite number of emails. And this is understandable because it's just quick and easy to call that next meeting, RSVP for the next meeting, show up to the next meeting. So that short blue bar, low upfront cost, low
Mhm.
infrastructure, it's understandable. However, when the volume, when our team's communication volume rises, at some point we start complaining about
Yeah.
having too many meetings,
Oh,
and
yes.
that's understandable. And the cost profile is the tall orange bar. This is painful work. So this bar chart of low upfront cost, high marginal cost represents, it quantifies, although I don't use numbers here, you could. Uh, this is the traffic jam. This is a culture of infinite meetings, infinite number of emails. In Jira or wherever the tool of choice, you have an infinite number of tickets. If you have a task list or a project plan, you're not you're not thoughtful about the word choice you use. I believe there's a time and place for your impressive vocabulary. A project plan is not that place. You
Yeah.
don't need 50 verbs. That's a team that's all over the place. And also, a communication traffic jam has infinite number of meeting minutes. And now with AI, right, as many technologies do, new technologies risk exacerbating and exaggerating human folly where we already are not good. So the fact that we already have infinite number of meeting minutes, AI, many of us are about to start using AI as our note taker, or we
Sure.
already are. So this leads to an infinite number of documentation, where it's a little bit interesting that with the era of agile, we were, documentation was falling out of favor, and maybe
Mhm.
we documented less. And all of a sudden with AI, the volume of document, and again, I use that word very loosely, documentation, it's just notes. It's a surveillance uh, actor. Yeah. So these words on the right are all terms that I use to describe an expectation traffic jam.
Hmm. Yep, exactly. And in your opinion, Robert, maybe you can share just some kind of your practical case when this communication traffic jam just was crucial for the project.
Say that again.
Yes, maybe you can share with us some kind of your practical case, one
Yeah,
of practical case
yeah.
when this uh, communication traffic jam was crucial for the project success.
Well, so it crippled a project, more than one project, but one project that immediately comes to mind is
Hmm.
I was working in the Salesforce ecosystem, and we were working on account transfer. So within your CRM, within Salesforce.com, you have accounts that are
Hmm.
assigned to certain salespeople. And every year we would do a recalibration and start reassigning accounts depending on whether revenue went up, so that customer would get more attention, or if revenue went down, then the customer would get less attention, that sort of thing. So the whole nature of this project was account transfer within CRM, within Salesforce.com. Um, and the emphasis of the work was, did we talk enough? It was all about meetings. And what's in the front seat was talk, 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 talk. And what was in the back seat is, okay, well, let's put something on paper, because we have this vague notion that those, and to the last point on the slide right now, every meeting, where do those expectations need to reside? Do they reside in our head? Do they
Hmm.
reside in 20 people's heads? Do they reside in our email,
Awesome.
in our Microsoft Teams thread, in Slack? And so these expectations we had on this project were everywhere. Instead of
Hmm.
single source of truth, they were in 10 different places.
Yeah.
You know, so so I believe that if you are storing these expectations in your head, across 10 people's heads, or in your email, this is thoughtless. This is not disciplined. Um, and I and this undermines the speed of changing your mind. It undermines the speed and the ease in which to share information. So the term that I'll use, we use the term walking deck. So
Hmm.
what this was is, at the beginning of the project, as we accumulated our notes, our meeting minutes, our task list, that was
Hmm.
really effectively a public dumping ground. It was just a
Yeah.
dumping ground of spontaneously conceived stuff. And this PowerPoint deck served as our Bible. And this walking deck grew from 5 slides, 10 slides, 30 slides. At one point in the project, it was 80 slides because we didn't dare delete the old information. It was very CYA, cover your backside.
Yeah.
Um, and so this was a communication traffic jam because we still had obsolete information in the deck. And so it caused a lot of confusion, a lot of ambiguity, a lot of complexity. Essentially, it was VUCA. It was very high VUCA.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be the first example that comes to my mind for where our expectation management resembled a traffic jam.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's go forward. And the last point, reinvent the wheel. Yep.
Yeah. So most of us acknowledge that our feedback loop for every project, the feedback loop is not great. Right? Here in 2025, we are committing very similar sins, very similar mistakes as we were in 2020, 2015. I think you could pick me up in time and drop me off in a retrospective, in a lessons learned meeting in 2005, 2015, and 2025, and I wouldn't be able to tell what decade am I in. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. So, thank you for these examples, and let's go forward and let's talk about this beautiful table.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the title of this slide is the decisions. These are the decisions that reside not in our head, not in our email, but in documentation that
Mm-hmm.
I more generically call information bundles, right? So on on the slide here, you see around 60 items,
Mm-hmm.
20 at the top, 20 in the middle, 20 at the bottom, and to title these very generically, yeah, they're deliverables, they're documents. These are things worth putting on paper, right? None of these things should reside in your head.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff should be on paper. And
Yeah.
so back to the metaphor of a factory is that in fact this is the origin of all this material. Is I was in an operations supply chain class and we were studying everything to do with the factory. And so as I imagined, was my team is
Mm-hmm.
my team a kind of factory? And as I saw this conveyor belt, I saw a project charter and a process flow, training materials, training approach, that sort of thing. And so, again, very generically, I call this I call these information bundles
Mm-hmm.
decision bundles.
Yeah.
Um, and so, what you see here, 60 items, it's a lot,
Yeah.
but it's manageable and it's finite. It is bounded. It is not infinite. And if someone has a a reaction to say, "Oh, this feels so rigid," no, it's explicit,
Yeah.
and there is a difference. And one of the best qualities of having this decision bundle, I call this the asset portfolio, is that you can change your mind. If there's 60 things in this diagram, your team is going to find a 61st item, 62nd, 65, or you may say, no, we would never, in this if I pick one under people, closure report. As the project is done, if you decide, we would never document a closure report, okay, I think that's not wise, but it's valid. You could take
Yeah.
that stance. So one of the benefits of just this diagram is it sets the table for you to have your own. And playfully, I sometimes call this the checklist of no, because
Mm-hmm.
those who really do not like documentation, well, this is a proposal for 60 things that you should avoid documenting. And and
Absolutely.
and the most fun example, if you see under technology, under the umbrella of build, code.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine someone saying, code, no, I want my code to reside up here. I don't want to type out my code. Right? This is silly. This is absurd. But it's a valid stance that others can agree or disagree. And so one fun way to view this is through the letters FAQ, frequently
Mm-hmm.
asked questions. And a typical FAQ near the end of a project might be 1% of scope, 2% of scope. Imagine an FAQ aiming for 100% of scope, that we know the questions. Now,
Yeah.
every project we might tweak, but what if the FAQ was our whole scope? So
Mm-hmm.
now we can formalize our Q&A, our questions and answers,
Yeah.
and these decision bundles represent the questions.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, the best leaders have the best questions. The best leaders don't have the answers. They don't have all the answers. Sometimes they don't have any of the answers. But
Yeah.
the best leaders have the best questions. And this template of 60 items, well, within each template, there are more than one question. In a roadmap, for example, near the upper left, a
Yeah.
roadmap essentially asks, what are the projects in flight, about to start? What are their titles? When did they start? When are they projected to end? And that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So a roadmap effectively is a Q&A.
Yeah.
And all of these effectively are Q&A. And so the goal of such a diagram is to uh, make the most robust Q&A asset
Mm-hmm.
portfolio so that your team does an amazing job at setting, then meeting expectations in a paced manner, and we'll talk about that shortly. And these are the decision bundles
Mm-hmm.
in your expectation factory.
Exactly. And I just want to jump in and compare these perfect list of the bundles and helpers. Yeah, I can say that this is some kind of techniques that could help and could help the guys, our guys, to make the right, not only as you mentioned, right decisions, but to build the process to cover all activities, to be in shape, form with any kind of things that they should know about their projects inside the teamwork collaboration as well. And that means for me, or this looks like for me as a simple tenet from the practice, when the professional need to have the list of the tools and he use the right tools in the right situation. Yep. Seems like.
Yeah. So the next word on the slide, I believe, is high infrastructure.
Yeah.
So let's acknowledge that this is not free, right? There is a significant upfront cost
Yeah.
for all forms of infrastructure, right? Whether it's, I like to take the playful example at a conference. If we're a tiny conference, we don't need infrastructure of name tags. But as soon as our conference might be 10, 20, 30 people, we
Yeah.
might want to invest in infrastructure in the form of name tags. We could take the example of a small restaurant. If you're a restaurant that serves 2 dishes only, a written menu, it's overbearing, it's overkill. That's fine. Your scale, your communication traffic cannot justify a factory, and it
Yes.
cannot justify infrastructure. But that is a valid stance. Are you small? Are you low traffic? Or are you high traffic? But if you are high traffic, you absolutely must be obsessed, not just lean. You must be absolutely obsessed
Hmm.
with infrastructure. Sorry, something popped up in my screen here that's in my way. So,
Yep.
this slide again, the asset portfolio. These are decision bundles. These are bundles of Q&A. The team interrogates itself, right? This is a form of prompt engineering. It's one thing for us to carefully curate questions for an AI agent. It's
Yep.
another thing for humans to ask other humans better questions. And so this diagram represents, it's a form of prompt engineering, and it sets the table and it bangs the table that
Yep.
every team must answer these questions. How does your process change? How does your database model change? How does your GUI design change? How does your technical architecture change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep. Absolutely. Let's go forward, I guess. And five verbs. We heard about this concept last time, but this time, maybe in this context, you can add a few words.
Yeah, so this is covered in more detail on a maybe 2 or 3 slides from now, but I at least want to introduce the term to everyone now. The
Yeah.
five verbs is a framework that reimagines RACI, RACI, which is
Mhm.
for adjectives. And again, RACI is not solving our biggest problems. It's not easing our communication traffic jams. So RACI should not be sacred.
Yeah.
I understand RACI is better than nothing. That's a really low bar. let's let's be more demanding of ourselves than adopting frameworks that are better than nothing. It's
Yes.
2025.
Yes. Really. So, and this beautiful slide with comparison of a couple of things.
Yeah,
Yep.
cost. Yeah, so this compares two cost profiles. The bar chart on the left is low infrastructure, and it works for low traffic. The bar chart on the right is for high traffic, and it represents infrastructure.
Hmm.
Um, Scale. When you think of expectation management, if you're a small team, you don't really think about scaling expectations for 10, 50, 200 people. But when you have a large company, a large team, you
Hmm.
absolutely must be obsessed with scale so that your marginal costs are low, so that you can have that short orange bar. So,
Hmm.
again, if you're addicted to meetings, it's understandable because of the short blue bar. It's just cheap and easy. If you're frustrated with your meeting gridlock, that is understandable because of the tall orange bar. And
Hmm.
anytime someone's caught in a traffic jam, uh, I think you're not fast. You are not agile, right?
Yeah.
If you're caught in a traffic jam, you're not moving fast. So if you're in a traffic jam, don't tell me don't tell me you're agile. You might be
Yes.
frequent, you might be frantic, but that's not the same as fast in terms of productivity, right? Fast is not
Absolutely.
frantic is not fast.
Absolutely. And if you want to have the productive team on the scale based on your scale, yeah, I mean big scale, maybe huge scale, etc., you need to think about the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the tall orange bar is painful.
Yeah.
That's the painful work because you are reactive and you are cheap. The bar chart on the right, the tall blue bar, is the hard work. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it's straightforward. And I'm saying this is why you are well paid, because as we innovate, as we improve technology and processes, we reduce the marginal cost of our operations. That's the short orange bar, but also the this body of work, innovation elegance, reduces the marginal cost of your innovation work, your
Mm-hmm.
communication, your expectation. This right, all teams as a kind of expectation factory, an expectation symphony. You also want your own communication to be easy, and so I'll jump down to the quote. The
Mm-hmm.
top line of this quote is the bar chart on the left. And not only do our teenagers and our children need to hear this, but we need to live this as well. If and when we do what is easy, our life will become hard. That's the left bar chart. When we do what is hard, our life will become easy. And so
Brilliant.
the,
Brilliant. Yeah.
this bar chart on the right, it's the whole ball game. It's all of business, whether it's operations, technology, uh, project work, innovation work. We, as we want to pursue profits and scale,
Mm-hmm.
we must be obsessed. We must be obsessed with low marginal cost. And it's not mean, it's not angry, it's just disciplined, and it's extremely empathetic because we want to make our work easy. We want to imitate the second sentence of this quote. Let's keep doing the hard work. Keep
Mm-hmm.
doing the hard work. Keep doing the hard work, and then our life will become easy. We must be obsessed with the bar chart on the right.
Exactly, and you know that you just remind me some kind of case that I had in my past, maybe 4 years ago, when I was participating in very intensive and very scale, more than 1,100 people project or account. Yep, I can say account, and that means for me as a for chief business analyst that I need to be aligned not only inside my team, but I need to be aligned inside with other teams, with other projects, because we have in the account portfolio more than 40 projects at all, and we should build some kind of infrastructure that help us to organize and to make our business analysis marginal cost lower. I mean, to execute the business analysis as a process and the project. We just trying to build, and we built actually our BA governance as a structure for how with help of that we going to organize the BA's work at all, and that helps a lot actually because we found a lot of gaps inside our work, inside our communication. We just covered them. We increase our productivity and efficiency, and finally our projects were a success. So that means, guys, we always have two core components of the success. One component is technology and people that you're going to use, yeah, and you're going to involve in that project as professional. But another component that just Robert said about is about the infrastructure, is thinking about your interaction inside the team. This is interaction between people, and that is also the second core basis of your success.
Hmm.
So can we go forward?
Yeah, thank you for that, Dimitri. Let me make one more comment about speed.
Sure.
Um, The bar chart on the left, it's impatience,
Wow.
it's hastiness, it's franticness, it's acting scared.
Yeah.
The bar chart on the right, the speed is thoughtful. We hear that phrase often: work smarter, not
Mm-hmm.
harder. Work
Mm-hmm.
smarter is that tall blue bar. And it's why, as smart professionals, we are well paid. So I just want to make that point about speed. Here, speed is in the form of low marginal cost. Um, and instead of a technological agility, I'll call
Mm-hmm.
this financial agility.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
one more beautiful picture. What?
So again, we're just missing the titles. The title of this slide is speed. And so these next three slides, I don't think we need to spend much time on them. But the objective of these three slides, and this first one is titled Speed, is that we're here talking about this metaphor of a factory. And again, the title of this slide is Speed. But then we have daily culture traits, habits, and terms. And what these word clouds aim to do is to connect the dots to talk about what is the dimension of the factory. And so these three slides in order, it's speed, then quality, and then waste. So this word cloud tries to connect the dots between speed and what you experience every day. Every day,
Mm-hmm.
do you experience bureaucracy? Do you experience workload flooding? Do you experience fatigue and
Fatigue.
egos and perfectionism? All of these, and some of the words in the word cloud um, are positives for speed. So when you have power and influence, this this increases speed. But when you have bureaucracy and complexity, you reduce speed. So this word cloud is a combination of culture traits that affect the speed of your expectation factory.
Yeah, and maybe you can just tell more about the fatigue because I think that a lot of guys saw or faced with previously mentioned components on that slide, but about the fatigue, I don't think so that they know a lot.
Yeah. So many of us have no space. We're continually buried and we're continually in a hurry. And so you start to just want to survive. You want to live another day. You're constantly tired and you surrender to, well, what will I ever feel enthusiastic? Will I ever feel well rested? Will I ever feel recharged? So I believe that many of us frequently, I don't know, 30% of our time, 80% of our time, when we feel fatigued,
Mm-hmm.
we're just trying to show up and drag ourselves to our keyboard. Um, this this hurts our speed.
Hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
enough?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense. So,
This is quality. So these
mhm,
are culture traits that I think of that many of us are experiencing. And again, this word cloud aims to connect the dots between what you experience every day
mhm.
with the quality of your factory, the quality of your expectation factory. So when there's favoritism, I'll start at the bottom. My eyes landed on the word favoritism. When there is a lot of favoritism in the environment, you run the risk of hurting quality because
Mhm.
you're making certain decisions, not on their merits themselves. It's just who you like, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Attention to detail. The first thing that I think of when I think of attention to detail is a Porsche, the car. So
Mhm.
all of us can have our favorite brands, whether it's cars or hotels, right? The most fabulous hotels in the world have amazing attention to detail.
Yes.
This is high quality, and so all of us have to decide: are we going to get in the weeds? Are we detail oriented, or are we going to demonize and dismiss attention to detail?
Mhm.
Boiling the ocean. If our if our scope is too big and we're trying to be perfectionistic and handle too much at once, then we hurt the quality of what we're building. So again, I could go through every single, I very thoughtfully created this word cloud. I think for this session, we don't
Enough.
need to be
Yeah.
exhaustive, but again, this is about the quality of your expectation factory.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just made beautiful accents on the main things. So let's go forward. One
and
more.
and this is waste. So when we reply all constantly in our email, those 30 people don't need to hear that message all in the same manner. So it might be relatively low level of waste, but it's still waste. And I think plenty of us already know, uh, this habit of reply all can be very wasteful, right?
Yeah.
Um, so what else? Misplaced competition. So let's say we have a healthcare line of business and a government public sector line of business.
Hmm.
They Are they competing against each other, undermining each other's business, or do we just need to understand? The right hand needs to know what the left hand is doing. But when we are oblivious and ignore the possible competition
Hmm.
internally, then we create waste. We hurt. We can even cannibalize revenues, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So again, this word cloud, it's just all about waste, connecting the dots between what we experience every day
Yeah.
with this factory trait of waste. One more thing: collisions. When we're double booked, when we're triple booked with meetings, these effectively are collisions. Uh,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
and there's just at the moment there are low consequences for these collisions.
Yeah. 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 Let's go forward. I think, guys, you got a lot of helpers and insights during the reviewing of these things. And right now we have one more interesting slide from Robert. So
Okay,
please.
so the title of this slide is
Mhm.
replace your four adjectives with five verbs. And so you see the mapping here. Um, it does spell, in case it's difficult to memorize the five verbs, it does spell Dr. Rad, which is kind of fun. And
Yeah.
this quote I picked up from a book. I love this quote: execution's two best friends are simplicity and transparency. And so, governing with these five verbs instead of the racy, it
Hmm.
it shapes a culture of simplicity and transparency. Right. In an earlier slide, we talked about the concept of verb sprawl: 30,
Hmm.
40, 50 different verbs in your project plan. This is complexity. And we've talked about the racy matrix and its ambiguity.
Hmm.
If I'm governing things with the racy matrix, I can't tell what's worth documenting. I can't tell the sequence of the work. I can't
Yes.
tell the duration of the work. And so five verbs accomplishes everything you wanted with the four adjectives, but you also get three culture traits: a sense of sequence, a sense of duration, a sense of closure. Um, and before you go on, there was one more point I wanted to make about. It's slipping my mind. Maybe we can go on.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So let's go forward. And here we have
Yeah,
one example.
yeah. So this is the most simple view of a project plan. So yeah, the point I wanted to make on the previous slide is that
Mhm.
I'm proposing this framework as word choices in your project plan. I'm not talking about your word choice and everything you document. For example, process flows. I'm not proposing five verbs for your process flows. I'm proposing five verbs for your project plan. And so back to the next slide. Um, Five verbs is a kind of racy, but it's a
Mhm.
racy with teeth, right? A racy has no teeth. So that the title of this slide is five verbs is a racy with teeth. And so you can see unambiguous sense of sequence, A
Mm-hmm.
duration estimate for purpose of this session, for purposes of a slide, I don't have a reason to have that duration be anything more complicated. 2 days, 5 days. That's for your team to decide. There are concern every now and then someone will say, well, someone's going to sandbag and they're going to bloat the estimate. Okay, well, then everyone's going to know that here on the draft row, Tracy needs 30
Yeah.
days. Does Yolanda need 10 days to approve? Okay, as long as they set again, you're setting expectations for what's worth documenting, what's next, who, how long, right? So again, we are now out of right within the session. We were in this the agenda item of an expectation traffic jam. So now we're talking about an expectation factory. And so
Yeah.
if you can advance the slide, um, just one to show some text at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure.
So what the five verbs does is it shapes this metaphor of an agreement factory. And for anyone who gets a little scared of the verb approve, we can hedge and say, okay, it's an expectation factory. It is explicit. It is not rigid. The ink is always wet. We can always go back to change expectations. But again, the metaphor here is this expectation factory. The point about coupling authority and accountability, many of us experience often. We feel accountable for certain work, but we don't have the commensurate authority for that work, which means someone else evidently has the authority without the accountability.
Yeah.
That sets you up for failure. That's a problem. And so what the five verbs does is it demands that you fuse the two of them together. For anyone who wants to
Yeah.
contribute, if you want accountability, I want to know your verb. If you want authority, I want to know your verb, which is probably approve. But so the five verbs is a very subtle but strong way to demand. If you want a seat at the table, you need to pick a verb. Where do you contribute? Because we need to keep authority and accountability fused, because when they become decoupled, that's when we become the traffic jam. That's when we start imitating VUCA.
Exactly. And guys, please don't forget to watch previous video with Robert about the VUCA concept. So this is very, very, very useful thing for you. And yes, you just again provide your thoughts. Just provide me some kind of insight about the project life, and I can share my opinion in that case. That yes, sure, because this will be extremely useful. This approach will be extremely useful, for example, for any kind of project, but especially for the projects with the difficult stakeholders, because or some kind of difference distributed teams during the whole world, the world. And I think that this is really helpful to know who should do what, in what time, at what time, with what results, etc., etc. And that, guys, think about this approach and think how you're going to implement this approach firstly inside your team, and maybe expand these activities outside your team as well. Let's go forward.
Yeah. So on the text on the right side, documentation. Some of us, and Dimitro, some people in your audience might
Yeah.
be anti-documentation. I understand. So or they may feel that this framework promotes hyper documentation. No, five verbs helps you prevent over documentation, because the moment you cannot assign one of these verbs, you're essentially saying, we don't have a sponsor. We don't have anyone to draft the project charter. We don't have anyone to approve the process flow, etc. So as soon as your team is unable or unwilling to assign one of these verbs, do that work at the pub.
Yep.
So the thought process is anything you would govern with a RACI is going to involve four or more people, which means it's worth putting on paper, which means it's worth governing with verbs that make it obvious that you are going to put this information on paper. And as soon as you cannot assign one of these verbs, then you now have license to say that this work isn't worth documenting. Whatever this work is, we now have license to store it here. We're going
Yeah.
to do that work at the pub. It's a 30-minute conversation. So your work, I'm going to assert, your work is either worth 5 verbs or it's worth doing at a pub.
Exactly.
And 5 verbs helps us distinguish productivity versus activity. Meetings and emails are wonderful servants. They are horrible masters. Meetings and email are our infinite activity. I don't know how many meetings we need. I don't know how many emails we need. That's the infinite activity. But what's finite is whatever is worth 5 verbs. It might be a lot, but it's finite and it's changeable. And we can use the 5 verbs in combination with the asset portfolio, right? 5 verbs on 4. Well, this example has 5 rows. I typically combine review and revise on the same line. I have
Yeah.
had a team, one of my teams asked to have review and revise on different rows. And so this example has them on different rows. But if you do some quick math, 5 verbs on 4 rows in your project plan, and multiply that by 50 of the 60, because in the asset portfolio that I showed, there's 60 items. 10 of those, the 5 verbs doesn't apply. And we could talk about that in another session. So I have 50 assets and I have 4 rows. 50 times 4, 200. It's a lot. It's a lot, but it's manageable. And so there's a lot of value in shaping a culture of an expectation factory by landing on what is finite. What is the finite productivity we're going to manage so that we don't boil the ocean? We don't strive for perfection. We only form, and we don't prohibit the other work. We just don't manage it because that stuff isn't going to cripple the team.
Yes.
The work that is not governed by 5 verbs is not going to cripple your team. It's not worth documenting. It's not worth collaboration. It's going to depreciate. It's whimsical. It's a chat. You can do it over a coffee or the beverage of your choice. So there's a lot of value in just committing. We are going to formally manage our finite productivity with full knowledge that we have infinite activity or uncertain activity. And so I'll end with a fun quote about theater. Theater is finite. There's an end. There's an intermission. Theater is finite. Drama is infinite. And there's a difference between theater and drama. Theater is finite. Drama is infinite.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go forward. Time is flying, and we have 13 minutes, sorry, of till the end of our pure 60-minute discussion.
Sorry, 13?
13 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll speed up.
So, yeah, let's go forward. Maybe a couple of words here and
So this is so when you govern something with 5 verbs and something goes wrong, there's only one way to detect it. There's only one thing that does go wrong is that it gets stuck. This just shows where work got stuck. And so, but now it's incredibly easy and straightforward and cheap to detect. Now it's very straightforward to detect a critical path. Where did the symphony, where did the factory stop? And the solution is just, we'll reassign the work. Because in this case, Val and Will, I don't know what happened, but something needs to change in the factory, in the symphony. So if you advance some of the words at the bottom, the 5 verbs helps us tackle this problem about sponsorship. Sponsorship is a huge job. What should you do when something feels too big to manage? Break it up into smaller pieces. So the 5 verbs helps us break the role of sponsorship into multiple pieces, and each time someone is assigned the verb approve, they're serving as a micro sponsor. They're serving as the tiebreaker. They're serving as a micro escalation point for the previous work. And so I can't attribute this quote. It's not mine, of course. But repetition, right? The repetition of the five verbs. We keep learning. What it's worth, five verbs. The father of action. We it's easy to recognize analysis paralysis, which is we need to move on. So if draft is getting stuck, hand it off. If review and revise getting stuck, hand it off. So this is the architect of accomplishment and progress.
Exactly. Thank you. And
Yeah.
about this beautiful picture.
Well, this is so the title here is handoffs and right stepping outside of IT for a moment. But these boxes that are being handed off, these represent our decision bundles. Every one of these boxes. One of these boxes is a roadmap. One is a
Mhm.
project charter. One is a process flow. One is our GUI design. One is our code, et cetera, et cetera. And so I stole this quote from a automobile executive from the last century. His name was Lee Iacocca. And
Mhm.
his quote is the speed of the boss is the speed of the team. And I disagree. I believe it's the synchronization skill, right? The synchron and now we're clearly tiptoeing out of the agenda item of factory into symphony, right? We
Yeah.
need to synchronize multiple threads because this is only one row of people. Well, there could be another row of people, right? And that now we have melody and we have harmony, we have rehearsal, we have interdependencies, but it's really the synchronization skill of this whole ensemble is what dictates the speed of the ensemble.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. It sounds like a chamaton as a musician instrument. Yep.
Yeah.
Seems like, yeah.
Okay, we can move on.
Yep. And
Wait. So
yeah.
these are again different visuals to represent the handoffs, right? Handoffs of these decisions. If you like the metaphor of a relay race, where there's the handoffs of the baton, again, someone who's drafting the material, maybe for the first couple hours they struggle, and then they ask
Mhm.
ChatGPT, telling ChatGPT, you know what? I have deer in the headlights. I don't know what to do. Here's my task. What should I do? And so the energy on the draft rises, and then after I don't know 2 hours, 4 hours, 2 days, their
Mhm.
energy they start to plateau and exhaust their thoughts. That's the time where you hand off to the review and revise sessions. An X number of people they spend 2 hours, 2 days
Mhm.
reviewing and revising, and at some point they exhaust their contribution to the work. That's when you hand off to the approve phase, et cetera, et cetera. So I just felt that these sine waves um, helped represent handoffs. Just like the previous slide, the metaphor here is handoffs, symphony. Uh, don't miss your cue. You have a cue, so now your engagement should go through the roof
Yeah.
because you know that your job is coming up.
Yes.
Don't miss your cue. And the bottom is ADCAR, a change management framework from ProSci. Company
Mhm.
name is ProSci.
Yeah.
So again, for change management audiences, I show this so we can see how the work, the time and energy on each step of ADCAR can shift over the course of the project.
Mhm. Awesome.
Um, and smooth, right? Verb sprawl is lumpy. I
Mhm.
see a question that I'll address here shortly.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a phrase: "Slow is smooth, smooth is fast." So I'll shrug at the first half of that statement, slow is smooth, because sometimes the symphony can and should go fast. But what I do want to keep is smooth because verb sprawl, if I've got 30, 40, 50 different verbs in my project plan, that is lumpy. And you have to decide, do you want to be a lumpy culture
Mhm.
or do you want to be a smooth culture? And so do
Mhm.
we have a question how to synchronize all information from all members.
Mhm.
That's a near future slide
Yeah.
that's coming right up. So I don't know that we have to spend that much time on this slide. The title here is setting ADCAR. So awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, reinforcement. That is what spells ADCAR. But the title of the slide is ADCAR set to music. So we are
Mhm.
synchronizing our Q&A. What on this topic of awareness. So,
Mhm.
uh, row, I don't have row numbers near the top.
Mm-hmm.
What are the questions every team needs to ask itself about awareness of the project? What are the questions every team needs to ask itself to build desire and enthusiasm for the project? That's the elevator pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a representation of synchronized Q&A. We have air cover. We have healthy friction, right? Task conflict is good. Personality conflict, no. And there's two-way accountability. Uh, we can keep going. And I think we're going to be able to. So, next slide is where we can answer Helen's question.
Mm-hmm.
So, Helen, synchronizing these bundles from all members. In this slide, um, I'm emphasizing in the slide on the right the verbs, the rhythm, right? Each square represents one each step, each handoff, etc. Now, what I don't show are the assignments, but I'm hoping it's easy for you to see where, well, row 4, I'm going to assign someone to draft. Row 5, I'm going to assign certain people to review and revise, etc. Um, so let me go back to your question to see if there's anything else I want to add. But I hope you can see the synchronization, especially in the later weeks. Well, even week 1, there's more than one thing going on. Week 2, there's more than one thing going on. Week 3, there's more than one thing going on. Week 4, every week, there's more than one thing going on. So there's both melody and harmony. The melody, I would say, are activities that are on the critical path, and the
Mm-hmm.
harmony, you could call the things that are the work that is off the critical path. So again, I want to reread her question to see if I've exhausted my thoughts. Synchronizing all information from all members. So yes, all members, what is their assignment?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really as straightforward as that. Is where do you want a seat at the table? Wherever you want a seat at the table, pick a verb. Okay, so I'll move on and explain the rest of the slide. Many of our teams suffer from low engagement. With 5 verbs, sitting in a symphony, and you've got accountability to the saxophone player next to you, the violin player, now you're going to be engaged. There is no lip service. You're
Yep.
sitting in the symphony. You can't just I mean, you could. I guess you could just get up and walk out of the concert or walk out of the rehearsal. But now everyone sees that you just don't want to be a part of this symphony. So we are an expectation flywheel. We are a well-oiled machine. This
Mm-hmm.
is right. This is a muscle. This is muscle memory. This is we master the 5 verbs and whatever collaboration is worth 5 verbs.
Yes.
This is high trust because we demonstrate through the 5 verbs and other things that we can cover another time, the lubrication.
Yes.
Trust has 4 components. The 4 components of trust: competence, honesty, dependability, and benevolence. 5 verbs helps us shape high trust. We
Mm-hmm.
are synchronized, we are poised, we are paced, we are not frantic. And
Yep.
we have the best seat in the house to be a member of a symphony, a member of a choir, to be a member of an amazing um, innovation ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great place to work. This is a great place to be.
Exactly. And one more famous quote from the one of the godfathers of modern management, Peter Drucker. Yep.
Yeah, the task of leadership, right? The 5, and this includes the 5 verbs. We want to get the right performers in the right seat. If your
Mhm.
strength is violin, let's give you a violin. If your strength is saxophone, give you a saxophone. If your strength is testing, then we're going to go down to rows 52 and we're going to assign you testing work. If your strength is design, then we're going to look at rows 38 through 47.
Mhm.
And we're going to align our strengths such that they are so strong it makes where we're weak irrelevant, because if I'm not strong at testing, I could probably sit in on those meetings to become better and
Mhm.
reduce my weaknesses. But while I do that, um, I don't I don't penalize the team.
Yep. Exactly. So beautiful slide and beautiful thought. Let's go forward because we have tight
Yeah.
schedule,
So
but
this
the
this
next
is not
one.
fancy, right? This is being brilliant at the basics, fabulous at the fundamentals, and we're
Mhm.
mastering the mundane. But teamwork should be this easy. Teamwork should be this easy. I want my audiences, Dimitro, your audiences, I want
Mhm.
you to reinvent yourself on your terms before your management reinvents you on their terms or AI
Yeah.
reinvents you on AI's terms. I hope you will reduce your marginal costs on your terms before management uh, performs layoffs, reducing upfront costs on their terms. Again, demonstrate how you can save the company money and reduce marginal costs before your executives who if they knew how to reduce marginal costs, they would already do it. I'm sorry to be so blunt, but they do not know how to reduce marginal costs, because if they knew, they would do it. All they know,
Yeah.
I'm generalizing, but all they know is reducing upfront costs.
That's right. That's right.
So five verbs is svelte, it is not sprawl. And again,
Mhm.
back to this point, theater is finite. This is the storytelling. We don't need to boil the
No.
ocean. We don't need to be exhaustive. We do not want to be perfectionistic. Those 60 items that I'm recommending you document, you may
Mhm.
find 61, 62, but at some point, I don't know, 80. That's perfectionistic. Don't go that crazy, right? But just
Yeah.
just be finite and manage your finite productivity. And the five verbs helps us channel our hunger and our
Mhm.
ambition. But ambition on behalf of the team is different than internal competition.
Yep.
I don't want to be internally competitive. Well,
Yes.
competition of ideas. Competition of ideas is great. Competition of people, not great. I
Not
want
great.
I want us to be ambitious on behalf of the team, on behalf of our customer.
Yeah. Exactly. And we need to go forward. I
Yeah.
guess the most interesting one slide, but yeah, we almost complete our speech.
Yeah, yeah. So the
So
title the title of this slide is VUCA and then an arrow to the word elegance. VUCA is everything in red. Um,
mhm.
and well, it's everything on the left, actually.
Yeah.
So that means you are frantic. You're just trying to maximize speed. Frequency is not free, or you're
Yeah.
maximizing pivoting. That's a cat chasing. That's the metaphor of a cat chasing a laser pointer or a game of whack a mole.
Yeah.
And so the words on the right, where we try to minimize work sitting still, and we reduce not to negative levels, but to keep the level of idle workers, including the people you're not hiring. Let's keep the level of idle workers low, but not negative. If your
Hmm.
idle workers is negative, it means people are buried. That is the traffic jam.
Yeah.
So
Again.
so high discipline and high empathy, it means our marginal costs are low and we are minimizing our systematic errors, our systemic and our systematic errors. We can be forgiving with the errors on the left, sampling errors, we can be very forgiving because we're human.
Yeah.
Let's not sweat human error. That stuff is not expensive. What's expensive is our systemic and our systematic errors. So the title of this slide is limits, um, and it's inspired by the phrase terminal velocity.
Hmm.
Do we
Hmm.
want term? Does that where do we want maximum values of speed, frequency, etc.? And what I'm proposing here is the the high discipline and high empathy on the right is really
Hmm.
what we want to be striving for if we like the metaphor of an expectation factory and an expectation symphony.
Yeah.
And a comment about perfection. Perfection is zero sampling errors. I'm not striving for that. I'm just pursuing excellence, which is minimizing systemic and systematic errors.
Yep. Exactly. Agree. Totally agree. Let's go forward. The next one.
Yeah. So the title of this slide, I think I may have misspoke on the previous slide. This slide is titled VUCA. You see the VUCA words on the left, and on the right, it's just the opposite of VUCA. I call this elegance. We can shape a culture that is smooth, it is confident, it is simple, it is clear. We are not a competitive, we're not pursuing a competitive advantage, we're pursuing a collaborative advantage. Imagine a team that says, wow, we collaborate better than anyone. And
Yeah.
instead of being workers being saturated, let's be obsessed with synchronization.
Awesome.
Uh,
And I
yeah, so
guess, yeah.
we still have time to cover this.
Uh,
I'll be
Not
quick.
really.
Okay. Well, so the objective of this slide, I'm not sure why it went black and white. Maybe that's our cue to exit the stage. Compare the columns, compare methodologies. All the time we're comparing, waterfall and agile, traditional and agile. And so those first four rows, scope, documentation, frequency, and speed, these are the typical comparisons. And so the rest of the slide proposes, how do we compare hybrid with elegance? That is the last column. I call it next. But if you advance the slides a little bit, you'll see red circles. And so I believe that these red circles is what describes our expectation traffic jams.
Mhm.
Too many of our teams are caught in these culture traits. So you can keep going a little bit. And
Yep.
so I'm hoping that this material, the five verbs, is just one example um, for us to untether ourselves, unlearn, unlearn what's going on with these red circles, and instead, the five verbs is one component. It's about 50% of the value proposition, but it's a necessary component to resemble the green circle that you'll appear here shortly.
Yep.
so so the last addition I made to this slide just last week was, if you see near the top, the word infinite. With AI, the volume of our documentation is about to explode. And I think that's low discipline and it's low empathy. And so now I believe that the asset portfolio that's finite, it's even more valuable in the as AI consumes all of us and creates it fosters infinite documentation. I consider that low discipline and low empathy. And so I think there's even more value now to be bounded and manage your finite productivity.
Yep.
And last slide is about the job market. When we have low confidence in our methodology and we're not investing, if we're under investing. So again, the title of the slide is, if we can improve our success rates of our projects, we can impact the job market. So the objective of this material for the job market is to raise our confidence, move the demand curve for innovation work to the right,
Mhm.
improve our employee retention, which moves our supply curve to the right, which
Mhm.
means we're hiring more. We reduce our level of idle workers, we improve the job market, and not just at a company level of innovation debt, our feature backlogs, at a societal level, we can reduce our innovation debt. There's a lot of valuable innovation work out there. And we're even being told the pace of innovation is increasing, the pace of change is increasing. But if the job market doesn't reflect that, then we can't just accept, oh, the pace of change is accelerating, yet the job market is not great. We need to reconcile that. And so this body of work helps us to have more confidence, innovate more, invest more, hire more. This helps the job market, and this reduces innovation debt for society.
Mhm. Awesome. And I think the last one.
Yeah. So to summarize what we covered, why would you want to manage your expectations? Right. Again, the theme here was expectation management. Why do you want to manage it like a factory? Because you care about all the same things. You care about your team's speed, quality, waste, and I count about 10 culture traits in a factory. That's in the book. This session, we had 3 word clouds that explained culture traits related to speed, quality, and waste. The
Absolutely.
five, on the topic of gears of an expectation factory, the 5 verbs governs the gears. It just says everything else, don't prohibit it, just don't govern it because it's not worth documenting. And now, as
Yeah.
we have multiple threads concurrent at the same time, we're effectively creating harmony.
Mhm.
interdependencies, and the combination of five verbs and whatever is worth five verbs, and to put some numbers behind it, 4 rows, 50 assets, 200 rows to synchronize. It's a lot, which makes sense, but it's not finite. And so the third topic we covered today was a communication symphony.
Yep. So, thank you so much for such inspiring speech, and I guess our colleagues have much more value than only 60-minute discussion. Yep, we just cover all slides, all thoughts for today, dear colleagues. And guys, please don't forget to dive deep into details with the Roberts books that you can see on the screen. Robert, thank you so much for such great conversation one more time, because the managerial art is the cornerstone of overall success. Yep. In
Yeah.
business, and that is great that we have such interesting experts in the world who just not only investigating the reasons or just collecting the thoughts, who invent a lot of things that really helps us to provide our excellence step by step. And thank you so much, dear colleagues. Thank you, guys. Please don't forget to subscribe on our page, social media pages. Don't forget to just visit the Robert page on LinkedIn Space. And please don't forget to await our next event that we just briefly announced during our conversation. This event will be related to the lubrication effect. Yep. So in managerial things and our teamwork or team interactions. So let's doing something great together. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your patience, for your attention. Robert, one more time from all of us. Thank you. Thank you. You appreciate you much. And your experience is brilliant. So thank you, dear colleagues. See you next time, and have a great week. See you.